You hear it all the time from politicians, right? That tariffs are this great tool to punish other countries and protect American jobs. And it sounds so simple. We charge them and we win. But what if that's not, the whole story? What if the cost of that punishment ends up somewhere you'd never expect?
So that leads to the big question. Who really pays for these things? The political pitch is super straightforward. We are making foreign countries pay. But as we're about to see, the economic trail often leads to a very, very different wallet. And yeah, here's the bottom line. The story we hear is all about punishing other countries. But the reality, a huge chunk of that cost travels all the way down the supply chain, first hitting American businesses, and then eventually landing with American consumers. You might be the one writing the check. Okay, so let's start by unpacking this common myth. It's the story that gets told over and over, but it kind of leaves out the most important part. First off, what even is a tariff? It's really simple. It's just a tax. It's a tax placed on goods that are imported. So when a product comes into the US from another country, the government slaps an extra fee on it right at the border. Easy enough? But here's the crucial detail. Who actually pays that tax? See, the US government doesn't send an invoice to some factory overseas. No, the tariff is paid upfront by the US company that's importing the product. That's the key first step. The money comes out of the pocket of an American business.
So, all right, an American company pays the tariff. Then what? That cost doesn't just vanish into thin air. It starts a journey from the border right to your budget.
And this is what that journey looks like. It starts when that US importer pays the tariff. Now, that importer has a choice. They can either eat the cost, which means less profit for them, or they can pass it on. And more often than not, it gets passed along to the distributor, who passes it to the retailer, and then finally, it gets baked right into the price tag you see at the store. And look, this isn't just some theoretical exercise. We can actually see the effects in the numbers. Research from the Federal Reserve lays out the real-world impact these tariffs are having on the prices we pay. So, how big of an impact are we talking about? Well, according to the Fed, these trade policies are on track to raise the price of what they call core goods by 3.1% through early 2026. That is a direct, measurable effect on the cost of things we buy all the time. What that really means is that tariffs have been this kind of hidden force, pushing prices higher than they would have been without them. It's one of the reasons that inflation on all this stuff has felt so stubborn. Now, let's be super clear here. Tariffs are not the only reason we've seen inflation. Of course not. Things like broken supply chains, labor costs, energy prices, they all play a huge role. But tariffs are a pretty significant piece of that puzzle, and it's a piece that often gets overlooked, making everyday life just that much more expensive. And you can see this pop up in some really specific categories. The Fed's analysis points to the strongest effects on stuff like appliances, laptops, and washing machines. You also see it in new cars and even watches. These are exactly the kind of big-ticket items where a price hike really stings. But here's the twist. And this is what makes tariffs so politically powerful. The price hit isn't immediate. There's this lag, this delay, that makes it almost impossible for the average person to connect the dots between the policy and the price they pay. This timeline really shows you why it's so tricky. A tariff gets announced early in the year, right? But for a while, businesses might just absorb that cost to stay competitive. It could be months before you see prices on the shelf start to creep up. By the time you, the consumer, really feel the full impact, that original policy announcement feels like ancient history. So what you end up with is this massive disconnect. You have the political pitch, which is simple, it's powerful, it's about protecting jobs and fighting unfair trade. But then you have the economic reality, which is way slower, way more complicated, and its effects are spread out over time. It's basically a tax that doesn't feel like a tax. And this right here is what makes tariffs such a potent and controversial political tool. They let politicians sound tough, while the actual economic consequences get buried and hidden from plain sight. And this is all happening at a time when people are already on edge. After the shock of inflation over the last few years, we are all hyper-aware of price changes. So these hidden tariff costs, they aren't hitting a calm economy. They're hitting a public that's already, let's be honest, pretty tired and skeptical. This quote just perfectly sums it all up. Tariffs might start at the border as a line item in a policy, but their economic impact, it does not stop there. They're not just some abstract geopolitical message or a campaign slogan.
They are real, tangible economic costs that travel through our supply chains and ultimately land in the budgets of real people. So here's a question to keep in your back pocket. The next time you hear a politician say that tariffs are making another country pay, just ask yourself, if that's really the case, then why do prices for so many things here just keep on moving up? Because in the end, it really is this simple. Tariffs are a cost, and costs very rarely just disappear. They get passed on.